UFC Qatar is this weekend. The relentless contender versus the hardened veteran. Pressure and precision versus power and pure grit. Expect chaos, speed, and a war from the opening bell. This is Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker. Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker is this weekend. And this is a massive fight for the UFC because whoever wins this matchup will most likely face Ilia Topuria at the beginning of the year, which means this is the number one contendership. Whoever wins this fight will possibly be fighting for the lightweight belt against Ilia Topuria. With that being said, I love Dan Hooker. I love the Hangman. He's a fun fighter to watch. He's technical on the feet. He's got power, he's tough, but he is nothing against Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan, a lot of people have forgotten about how good he is because he hasn't fought since UFC 300. Almost 2 years ago, he's been in the cage. But he is an explosive wrestler, insane scrambling ability, and he has underrated striking. He knocked out Beneil Dariush with a knee. I think Arman Tsarukyan makes this an easy fight, but we're going to break it down. When we look at the striking, Dan Hooker has the reach. He uses the long jab well, the stabbing teep kick, and his ability to close the distance and throw elbows and knees up the middle, hooks, uppercuts is what makes him so deadly. He is a powerful puncher, and he has so many weapons, and we saw that against Dustin Poirier, the 5-round war, one of the greatest fights of all time. If Dan Hooker can walk you down and land knees and elbows, uppercuts, these powerful strikes that hurt you, they put damage on you, you can fold quickly. And that is one thing Arman Tsarukyan does have to watch out for because Dan Hooker has improved in his takedown defense. And if he is preventing a takedown, if he's stopping a takedown and he lands a knee up the middle, he could knock out Arman. Although I think that is very unlikely because I think Arman has a pretty good chin and his scrambling ability and his wrestling awareness is far superior than Dan Hooker's. It can still happen. It's MMA. Anything can happen. And Dan Hooker has gone to split decision in his last 2 fights, and they've been close, and he's bloodied up his opponents. Gamrot, Jalen Turner. Dan Hooker is a good fighter. In the striking department, Dan Hooker has the edge because he can use the reach, the distance management, and he just has so many weapons. Arman Tsarukyan, though, is an underrated striker because he level changes so well. He's a functional, precise striker, so he just doesn't throw anything that puts him in danger. He's not walking into you, throwing an overhand right, then an uppercut. He's very precise. He's throwing a 1-2 down the middle, looking for a level change, looking to get a leg, maybe an overhand right while he's level changing. He's very precise, which helps him because he doesn't get hit a lot. He really doesn't. His biggest striking exchange in his UFC career was against Mateusz Gamrot, and that was more of a scrambling clinch situation than it was a back and forth striking affair. Arman Tsarukyan, though, still has functional striking. He's improved each fight. And like I've said, he hasn't fought in almost 2 years. So he's probably improved. He has definitely improved since the Charles Oliveira fight. But I would still give the edge to Dan Hooker on the feet. However, in the wrestling and grappling department, Arman Tsarukyan is one of the best scramblers in the division. We saw that against Gamrot. We saw that against Charles Oliveira. We saw that against Damir Ismagulov, the guy who was undefeated and was supposed to be the next big thing, and Arman Tsarukyan shut him down. Arman, his top control is insane. He's not like Gamrot where he's just looking to take you down and have that position where he's just standing over you. Arman is constantly looking to take you down and hold you down. He is very good at chain wrestling, getting to the hips, taking you down, getting to your back, and constantly working submissions. And he's not afraid to get in your guard. We saw that in the Charles Oliveira fight where he was willing to get in the guard of Charles Oliveira and land punches, land elbows. We did see that he almost got caught in the guillotine, which was very close. And if it wasn't for the shorts coming down, Charles Oliveira could have had a guillotine, but Arman is very good in the scrambling department. His ability to chain wrestle, his ability to shoot doubles, singles, body locks, inside trips, is so flawless. Like, he has a very good way of managing his grappling. It's almost like it's a system where If he can't get the double leg, okay, let me go to the single leg. I can't get the single leg. Let me look for a double underhook and look for a trip. He's just constantly going through the motions. He is so similar to Islam Makhachev. It's insane. That's why that fight could have been one of the best fights we've ever seen, because Arman's wrestling and grappling is so good. It's up there with Islam Makhachev's. We just haven't seen it at that level because he hasn't faced anyone with that wrestling or grappling, you know. Charles Oliveira is a great submission artist, but in terms of pure grappling, chain wrestling, Charles Oliveira isn't that great. But he is a good grappler. Just in terms of wrestling, it's not that high. That's why Arman against Dan Hooker, I think it's very lopsided. Dan Hooker does have good takedown defense, but I don't think it matters with Arman Tsarukyan because this guy has been doing it since the age of 5. And yes, Dan Hooker has improved his takedown defense. He's working with City Kickboxing, where they all have pretty good takedown defense and can manage on pushing the head down, getting the leg out, and working underhooks or getting their back towards the fence and turning over. It doesn't matter when you're fighting someone like Arman Tsarukyan because he will just constantly change positions, and he is extremely hard to shake off. But Dan Hooker does have good defensive grappling skills, especially working with City Kickboxing. He has long limbs, which helps him stand back up. And his ability to constantly work back to his feet has improved. In the Gamrot fight, the Jalen Turner fight, Dan Hooker has improved massively in the grappling department. Since being submitted from Islam Makhachev, he's gotten better, but he's still the same fighter at the end of the day. You know, Arman will expose things that Dan Hooker may have not ever fixed or gotten truly better at, you know. And the physical, mental factors, without a doubt, Dan Hooker is mentally crazy. This dude can eat shots. He can physically endure pain. I think he broke his arm and his skull against Jalen Turner. I think he broke his wrist or his arm against Gamrot. So his ability to get hurt and then still fight through that pain is... he's probably the best at it. He probably has the best strength and control in terms of like breaking a bone and fighting through that pain than anyone else in the UFC roster. But when it comes to cardio, fighting IQ, finishing threat, it all favors Arman Tsarukyan because his grappling and wrestling is just so much better. It's far superior than Dan Hooker. However, on the feet, Dan Hooker is without a doubt the better finishing threat. But I would still favor Arman Tsarukyan because he is a better fighting IQ fighter. He doesn't get in brawls. He very rarely leads himself into bad situations. The last bad situation he was in was the Charles Oliveira guillotine situation. But before that, I don't really recall a memory where he almost got submitted or almost got knocked out. He makes his fights look flawless in a sense. For Arman Tsarukyan to beat Dan Hooker, I think this will be a decision win. I think he's going to pressure and cut off space early, not allow Dan Hooker to land the long teeps, not allow him to establish that long jab, get on the inside, start working the handcuff position, try to get to the back, underhooks early, force Dan to defend everywhere, against the cage, in the middle of the canvas, everywhere, and have Dan Hooker start guessing, and then Arman can land some good clinch positions, elbows, knees, and make this a long grappling affair. Make Dan Hooker exhausted, you know. He does have good cardio, but when someone is riding on you the entire time, grappling you, and just establishing hooks and threatening you with submissions, it's so hard to stay alive. We saw that in Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev. If Dan Hooker wants to win this fight against Arman Tsarukyan, which he definitely can, there's always a chance, keep the entire fight a kickboxing matchup. Don't allow Arman Tsarukyan to get close. Don't allow him to get underhooks or a single leg. Constantly fight. And Dan Hooker does have pretty good takedown defense. He has a 78% takedown defense, which is actually better than Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan only has a 75% takedown defense, but Dan Hooker needs to make this a pure striking affair. Stay at long range, throw a lot of knees up the middle, shoot your right hand across, make Arman Tsarukyan bleed in the cage. Make sure he knows anytime he's coming in, an elbow to the face, a knee up the middle. Make Arman hesitate on shooting, and then you can piece him up and get Arman to back up. If you want to defeat a wrestler, put them on their back foot. It's so much harder to shoot on someone or to level change and disguise that takedown when you're on your back foot. So you have to push Arman back against the cage, piece him up, a lot of body kicks, and make it a switch stance. Throw a lot of body kicks, like how Carlos Prates knocked out Leon Edwards in an open stance. throw a lot of body kicks, straight hand down the middle, and force your opponent to make a move on you, and then you can quickly counter something and expose Arman on the feet. I do think Dan Hooker can do that, but the moment he's taken down, I think it's over. And that's where I think this fight leads to. I think most likely this is going to be a unanimous decision win, 50-45, 49-46 for Arman Tsarukyan. I just think he is far superior than Dan Hooker. I love Dan Hooker, but every time he faces someone at this level, every time he has to make his way into, that number one contendership, he always loses. Dustin Poirier, Islam Makhachev, it always feels like when the pressure is on Dan Hooker, when it's his time to win, he always loses. And that's why I'm picking Arman Tsarukyan. I just think he is the better fighter. Unless Dan Hooker lands a crazy knee up the middle or a right hand and just cracks Arman, I just don't see Dan Hooker winning. I'm picking Arman Tsarukyan, unanimous decision, and I think this is going to be a long grappling affair for Dan Hooker. That's my video. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like, comment who you think will win, and subscribe for more content like this. See you in the next video.